So today I'm going to talk to you about powering the next gen of commerce with Feedonomics and artificial intelligence, which is, I'm sure, everyone's favorite topic currently. So Feedonomics, I've been at the company about 5 years, really led a lot of different things within the organization over the last several years. So formerly led our negotiations with Amazon and TikTok and Google and others. Also, currently with my new role, focused on everything signal related. So my job currently helps the internal teams at our company make the engine behind the revenue machine run faster. So if you're interested in helping your business move faster, think about different signals and behaviors that lead to really strategic and targeted plays, I might be able to help you a little bit. And then finally, if you like to vacation in Latin America, it may also be helpful to you, and currently spend a lot of time in Medellin. So if you need a tour guide, I might be your guy. Okay, so one thing that remains really, really true, and has remained true for years, is that omnichannel selling has and remains, it has been and remains to be a really imperative thing that all brands have to consider at all times, which is the 4 pillars that make up omnichannel selling are where you're selling, how you're showing up in those places, how you're managing the inventory and the product flow in those channels, and then finally, how you're fulfilling and handling returns. If you do all 4 of those things really, really well, you're going to deliver a really awesome customer experience. And right now, more than ever, there's more stuff that gets in the way of delivering on those 4 things really, really well. I don't know how many of you are foreign policy experts, but speaking for myself, I'm not one. Managing tariffs, very, very challenging. I don't think clients or partners are expecting us to always have the answers at all times, but they're expecting us to think creatively about the challenge and how we show up and address those things. Similarly, when you're thinking about brand loyalty and driving LTV, these things are super, super critical to building a brand that lasts over time. And then finally, as you're thinking about expanding into new channels, now is not the time to spray and pray and just show up in random places. You have to be really thoughtful about where you're going and how you're measuring the impact in those channels. Some of what we'll talk about today is LLM or answer-based channels like Perplexity or ChatGPT and others. I'm sure some of you are already starting to see traffic come from those places, and you need to think through, how do I show up better in those places at all times? Am I representing the brand the right way, with the right price, the right images, the right content, and so forth? And we'll talk about a lot of that today too. So Feedonomics. Feedonomics is an enterprise data feed management platform, which basically means we help brands take their product catalogs wherever it may exist, centralize it into a place, transform that data, and then send it to a location. And that location can change. The location could be Google and Facebook and TikTok and so forth. It could also be Klaviyo or Attentive. And so when you're thinking about why does product data matter? It matters because that's how your brand is going to show up to people that are looking for your products. And now, more recently, again, to ChatGPT and Perplexity and others, we have to think about how we show up on those channels too. So if you're not already thinking about LLM-based traffic, soon you will be. And so showing up in those channels is very similar in the sense that you need to show up correct, because that's how you'll be discovered with context. But the difference with those channels is that they're relying on things called unstructured data, which is fairly new to how we've traditionally sold across those channels as well. More on that to come in a moment. So what does all that mean? Right now, when we think about showing up and advertising in different channels, we think about the top of the iceberg here, which is what's visible, the actual shopper experience, the things that people see when they actually look for your products and go online. But below the surface, there is a lot of crazy happening. And that's why we rely on partners like Feedonomics, ourselves, or even Logic Position and others to think about these things. So under the surface, how you get to Google, how you get to, in the future state, ChatGPT and Perplexity and others, is you have to think about your business rules, your inventory control, the attributes that go into the product data, the titles, the pictures, and now the context, right? So thinking about fit guides and other things that help people think about how to use your data and use your products, and then in the future, hopefully sell them to others when they make recommendations. So what's this look like in practice? Right now, any of us, we're all shoppers here, when we go to actually search for something on a place like Google, we type in a query. We type in the thing that we're looking for. These days, if you're searching for things on ChatGPT, it's not just I'm looking for Nike men's 6 gray, whatever. It's I have a hike in Portland this weekend and it's going to be a little rainy. I've never purchased shoes before. What should I be thinking about as far as my next purchase goes? And then you get this long-winded answer that eventually ends with, you should probably buy this kind of shoe. But what you'll see here in the bottom is that the platforms are going to reward the products and the brands that show up with the right data at the right time. So if someone's looking for something very specific, if you as the brand can deliver an answer to that search, you're going to be rewarded for it in the form of a lower cost. If you respond with something that isn't very descriptive, lacks the details, lacks the colors, lacks the attributes, Google's going to say, I'm not sure if this brand is actually ready to serve up the right product to the shopper. I'm not going to take the risk on something that might not convert. That's going to be a more expensive cost. Whereas all the way on the other side, you can see the brand here has provided all sorts of data around the size, the brand, the color, and so forth. And so Google, with a lot more confidence, can say, yes, this is the right product for what the shopper is searching for, very likely to convert. I'm going to lower the cost. I'm going to reward that behavior. So when we polled our customers, we typically work in the enterprise segment. This is what they saw as well. So the results don't lie. If you invest in your product data and you show up in the right way at the right time for the people looking for the products that they want to buy, you will convert and you will win. So now we have to think about, where's the industry going? We talked a lot about search. That's how a lot of us on the partner side have made a lot of money helping all of our clients over the years. But the game it's not changing, it has changed. And so it's incumbent upon all of us to keep up with what's going on in the market. So I used to Google things. Google became a verb, not just a noun, and that was how we've operated for decades. Now I ask ChatGPT things. How many of you do the same? Very regularly. Okay, more questions on that in a moment. But what we've seen is that 58% of consumers have already started to change their behavior, and this is going to accelerate, right? There are people being born today who will not know that Google used to be the way people found answers. That's crazy, and also means we're all old. But I think the point here is that behavior, it's crazy how fast behavior has changed, right? ChatGPT didn't come out that long ago. But right now, we rely on it. The backlash that came out after GPT-5 rolled out because people were emotionally connected to GPT 4.0, that's wild behavior. Some of you are in here, I could tell. But I think the point more is to say that we are now reliant on these systems, and they're unlocking answers for us in a way that we hadn't previously done that before. So what's that mean for us in the future? Well, for one, product discovery will be AI-led. How people find products will happen through the context of an answer to a question they ask to a system that seems like someone who understands them in a really deep way, in a really deep level. Checkout will become more agentic. At some point in the future, we will be allowing systems that aren't exactly controlled by us to make purchases on our behalf. Not because that's some crazy future thing, it's because systems will understand us so inherently well and understand every bit of our lives that it can actually be empowered to make that decision for us. So even now, I use ChatGPT, like this whole outfit was picked out by ChatGPT. I'm not even kidding. What I literally did is I went into Banana Republic, I stood in the changing room, and I took selfies of myself, and I said, you are a fashionista. You have 25 years worth of experience. You want me to look great on stage. Give me the real feedback. Don't glaze over me. Give me the real feedback. And you know what it did? It said, your shoulders look good here, too tight around your waist, goes too short, too wide here, etc. And I actually purchased more stuff because I was now it gamified my shopping experience to say, you didn't quite do it. You should probably go for the more expensive one. Now, whether Banana Republic sponsored that conversation or not remains to be seen. But I think the point is the same, is that I'm now using this thing to help me buy more effectively. And at some point, GPT is going to remember exactly what fits on me well, and we'll find like products at like brands that can deliver that experience. So everyone here should care a lot about, well, how do I make sure that my brand is right there and ready when it matches what someone will look good in, will make them feel good when they purchase. Then finally, data and systems are critical. They've always been important, right? But we've always talked about how brand owned data was super important. That's why having a .com is valuable, because you capture people from ads and then you roll them into your other campaigns. But brand data now is the moat. It is the thing that will continue to grow as you continue to enhance your systems, you bring more people into them, you can start to extract insights in a way that we've never been able to do before. I could throw a bunch of acronyms at you like AI and MCP and LOL and things like that, but the reality is that there are a lot of tools, the takeaway, there are a lot of tools coming onto the market that will allow us to understand our data in ways we never imagined. And it's incumbent upon us to understand what that means and how we roll that into our strategy. And so you should really be thinking about, if not internally, then especially with your partners, how can I start to extract more from the data I already have? What systems do I need to set up in place to capture more from the world and then fold that into my strategy as soon as humanly possible? So when we think about AI readiness, there are 5 stages of product data that we think about. So the first, you have your standard stuff. So DPA attributes, so that's your standard titles and basic attributes, color, things like that. We then move into structured data. So this is where some of you may be using a PIM. There are other relevant content or data points that you're layering into your feed content. Super important, very valuable, been around for a while. Level 3, some of you are probably marketplace sellers. So there's things that matter to Amazon that don't matter to Google. We need to account for that. Level 4, unstructured data, but brand verified. What is the content you're putting out into the world that helps a brand understand, or helps a shopper understand how your products should be worn, how they should be used, how they should be discovered? Fit guides, reviews, stories about the products, right? There are a lot of brands that have done this really well, where they've shown very highly experiential stories where people go into the woods and they try on this rain jacket. The rain jacket fails. The brand shows up, replaces the jacket. There are infinite ways to show up differently, but it's really important to rely on your partners to help think through what some of those stories are and delivering them in the right way for the systems that digest that data. And then there's level 5. Anything goes. Unstructured data with context. So think about user-generated content. You don't really have a lot to do with how that's created. It's just your product existing in the wild and how people use it. So for me, Banana Republic was here. They feel probably pretty good that I'm out here talking really good about their products, but they'd probably also be curious about how I discovered their products and what went into that search process. And now we're in a place where we can start to influence how that happens. So how do we help you all keep up with this? Earlier, I had asked how many of you were ChatGPT users. So to go into that one more time, how many of you have ChatGPT on your phones? Okay, cool. We're going to do a quick little experiment. Could y'all please take out your phones? I want to talk about context for a moment. So everything that I do is focused on signals and behaviors. If this happens, when this happens over there, et cetera. So I want you all to type in a prompt to ChatGPT for me. Ready? Hello, friend. I'd like for you to roast me based on everything we've ever talked about. I want all the smoke. Now, while that's loading, how many of you have ever asked ChatGPT to tell you a joke? Okay, how bad was that joke? Meh, yeah, exactly. All right, let this load. I'm hearing some of you crack already. Yeah, it's bad, right? She got it. So look, the reason this is funny is because you have fed a ridiculous amount of context into this bot, this human-ish thing that knows everything about you, that you've asked it to judge in your look, your emotional trauma, your bank account information. Everything is in here. Everything you've thought to say to a friend is in this thread. And now I want you to all go into the thread and say, thanks for that. 10x worse. I get it. I get it. So look, the point is more to say, look, the more context we feed this thing, the smarter it gets. That's a fact, right? And I would highly recommend if you need to rebound from everything we just did, ask it to do the same, but ask for compliments instead of a roast. It's much nicer. But I think again, the point here is to say that context matters. How your brand shows up matters. The investments you make, are small or large, will have levered outcomes on the channels that eventually people will search and discover your products on. So for us, and with Feed AI, one of our feature sets, we're focused on signal types, right? So brand identity, e-commerce, your .com experience. We're thinking through the channels you're existing on. We're thinking through other data that Feedonomics has access to, and we're thinking about generative AI. So in practice, what's that mean? So from us, what you can soon expect is leveraging the feed data that you've given to us to help eventually create product images that are relevant to your specific feed. And the inverse is true too, where you can begin to create feed data based on images you feed it. And so as these models become more and more advanced, right, and they're layering in new features, new intelligence, more compute over time, you're going to see better outcomes, which means our moat will similarly improve, which means your moat around better content, more relevant content, will continue to be better for your end shopper. So again, the more you invest today, whether it's with us or any platform in your product data, the better outcomes you can expect in the very near future. And then finally, around data enrichment. So I had mentioned Perplexity and GPT and things like that before. So just to remind y'all, you have structured data, everything we've ever known about search data, the things that get fed into those systems. Then you have unstructured data, which is kind of the unknown. It's unknown because some of these platforms are not even ready to digest that information. They're not ready for contextual data like fit guides. That doesn't mean you shouldn't be preparing for the moment that they are. So platforms like Perplexity and ChatGPT and Copilot and Gemini, et cetera, all of them eventually are going to get to this place where they're going to rely on product data and unstructured data, the context that goes around your products. So the investment starts now, regardless if you can show up directly within those channels. So with that, let's partner. Feedonomics has a number of relationships with a number of major platforms around the world. They also help subsidize content and success on their channels. So namely, here we've got a number of subsidies. Basically, the way these work is if you're a brand or you work for Logical Position and you represent brands, the goal here would be to say, I have a client or I am a brand that wants to succeed on channel X, and then there may be funding available to actually adopt Feedonomics to get you live onto that platform. To that end, on the Perplexity front, we also have a very new relationship with Perplexity. Perplexity is in closed beta right now, so you need a very special key and access to get into that world to allow for your product information to be directly uploaded into that platform. So the difference between current state and future state is that current state, while you should be creating content and contextual information to show up in the right way on those channels, eventually, like most other channels, you'll be able to plug in your catalog. Currently, that is not possible for the wide mix of merchants. So the goal, again, is to get ready, get your assets prepared, open those conversations as soon as possible about what this will mean for your brand. And then again, once that door opens, be ready to sprint through it. So if this sounds interesting, we offer a free service called Feed Audits, where we'll basically audit your product data, help you understand where there may be gaps or inefficiencies in the product data that you have currently available, and then you can decide what to do with that information. We'd obviously love to partner with you, but even if you don't, this should be free context for you to work with. Feel free to scan the code if this is something you'd like to sign up for. And I'd like to end all my presentations this way, but just thanking you for letting me talk. If you enjoyed today's presentation, again, my name is Matt Dornfeld, work for Commerce. If you really didn't like it, my name is Ryan Garrow, and I work for Logical Position. Thanks, everybody.